Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Farmer. I am the festival director of Out on Film, Atlanta's LGBTQ Film Festival. And our festival this year is pretty amazing. We have some great films from all over the world. One of the films that we're very, very excited about showing is Ganymede. I'm going to read a little bit of information about the film, and then we're going to meet the co-directors and the producer. When the son of a small town politician develops a crush on his openly gay classmate, he finds himself stalked by a grotesque creature that increasingly inhabits his thoughts and threatens physical harm. The film is directed by Colby Holt and Sam Probst, and the producer is Steve Stanley. Thank you so much for talking to us today. I'm so glad that we're having the film.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
thanks for
We're
having
excited
us.
to be here.
We can't wait to screen.
This is going to be very exciting. So, just tell me a little bit about how this film came up.
Yeah, well, in 2019, I think when we were first working on the script, we noticed there was a lot of escalating rhetoric around our community, the LGBTQ community, and a lot of it was taking an extreme and very religious tone around it. You hear people throwing around the word demonic and things like that a lot, and so we started to think, if you're growing up in a household where this is the ideology that you're presented, how does that start to manifest in your life, and what would that look like if you felt your own homosexuality or queerness was an evil entity that was afflicting you and your family? And so that was kind of the very beginning of the idea, and we wrote a script, developed it together, and then that's when Steve came into the picture, and we started working with him.
Yeah, I'd been out in LA actually for about 10 years and then moved back to first Arkansas and then Georgia. And it was really fantastic to get this script from a mutual friend because, one thing, well, I loved Los Angeles actually, but I did feel moving back there was a disconnect between maybe what the gay culture was in these larger cities and what
Mhm.
was happening in the South, what was happening in red states in rural America, and hearing their script and meeting Sam and Colby, it was so fresh and so authentic. And it really spoke to me as someone from a small town of just understanding what these people are going through, understanding the kind of rhetoric they're hearing. So I just really admired what they were doing and was excited to try to help them.
Great. Tell me a little bit about the central character, Little Lee Fletcher.
Yeah, Little Lee, he is the track star, or it was what it was originally written as, and then we changed it to wrestling as we went into production. So he is a wrestling star who he is basically this kid of a political family who is under a lot of pressure from his parents. He's held into this legacy that he has to live up to, and he's constantly trying to do what his dad feels is the best for him and their image.
Mhm.
And that all kind of goes into a shatter as he meets Kyle Culper, who he starts developing feelings for. And those feelings really start awakening a lot of terrors within him that we as an audience experience as well. So we're on a journey with Lee. We're both in his mind and out of it and dealing with what that experience is when you are torn between what your family or what society wants you to be versus what is manifesting based off of your fears of what you want.
How would you say that Kyle changes his life?
Kyle, I would say awakens something in him that has always been there, and that is opening himself up to desire for something that's otherwise been told is bad to him. Would you say
Yeah,
that's fair to say
yeah,
from you writing it?
yeah. I also think it's just like Kyle represents a model for him of like what he could be. It almost seems like this magical act to Lee that Kyle is just openly gay. It's almost like Lee just can't believe it. Like, how are you walking around being openly gay? And I
Yeah.
think he represents a future for himself that he previously didn't even think was possible.
A lot of this film is about repression, intense family pressure, and as Steve mentioned, attitudes in the modern South. Can you sort of just talk about those elements of this film?
I'd be happy to hear Steve answer that one. Being in Georgia, I know that's a very specific experience that you, Steve, and Colby shared, and I'm curious what your perspective was reading the script, Steve.
Okay, I mean, yeah, there is something I think we forget, and it was so chilling hearing the sermon in the movie. It's so chilling hearing some of the things the dad says, some of the things the mom, that even the well-intentioned, in some ways, mother of Lee was saying, is that these are things that just rang true. These are things I heard growing up. I think these are things Sam and Colby heard growing up. And something I love though that Colby brought out is there are also people like Kim, Kyle's mom. There's people like Miss Kempton. So the modern South is a mix of this. You have these new voices. You have people that are supporting. You have openly gay people, which I was not in high school. I was I didn't have a Pastor Royer in my life, but I too would have admired a Kyle like that. But then we still have these deep pockets of repression. Not that they don't exist; they exist in California, but I think we still have places where it's okay to be persecuting youth like that. I mean, Colby, I think you have an interesting experience having seen sort of both sides of this. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think one thing I definitely wanted to try and bring out in the script and point out is that in rural America and the South, the divisions that our country is facing are playing out in sharper contrast with each other. The communities, their kids are more tight knit. Their kids go to school together. They live next door to each other, and sometimes these viewpoints push up against each other in a way that I think folks in cities or on the coast, it just isn't exactly the same. Not to say that there aren't conservative folks or homophobic or queerphobic folks in cities or on the coast. I just don't think it plays out in as sharp as contrast as it does in rural parts of our country.
I was reading earlier that this film was inspired by films such as Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte, and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, as
Mhm.
well as more modern day films like Love, Simon and The Babadook. Can you sort of talk to me about how you incorporate all those movies and just sort of talk about being inspired by those and sort of using those as inspiration for your film?
Sure. I think we like to do a little bit of genre bending.
Yeah,
And in its truest form, this is a Southern Gothic.
yeah.
It has all those trappings. That's why we mentioned Cat on a Hot Tin Roof or Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte. But in bringing a kind of modern sensibility to it, I think we today would probably say, oh, this is horror or this is coming of age. And
Mhm.
so an idea of like blending those together, and you don't see a lot of explicitly Southern Gothic films, I feel like, anymore. Like there are some, like Eve's Bayou comes to mind, like Skeleton Key is
Yeah.
sort of one, maybe more supernatural horror, but we wanted to play with that specific genre, but meld it into something that modern audiences would recognize.
Yeah, and Love Simon and films like that, I feel like play in with the heart for it. So, we like to think of it as a horror film with heart. And we were really trying to show what that coming of age aspect is while also blending it with what is the horrors of the experience that Lee goes through. And Steve really helped us a lot to finesse how these genres can blend together, because it is a challenge. And it's one of those things that I feel like we were really lucky to have Steve make sure our voice was heard the way we wanted it to be heard throughout the process, while making sure it didn't feel like we were making a bunch of different movies all at once. And he was really helpful in developing the script and working with Iris as well, our other partner in this, to develop it into something that feels cohesive.
I'll tell a quick funny story. Funny to me is because Colby and Sam really fought for this tone, and it's not an easy one for this Southern Gothic. And when you're doing something, like we said, there's not a lot of Southern Gothic out. That's not easy with Hollywood because
Yeah.
everybody wants you to do something that was recently successful and already happened. And so we had a lot of conversations, and Colby would be like, "This isn't camp. This isn't camp," and Sam saying the same thing. And that was everybody's fear. Oh, this is too campy. It's like, no, it's not. It's just the reality people live in. And we were on set the first week. I can't remember the scene, and there was this really beautiful moment between actors in one of these heightened moments. And Colby just turned to me and said, "See, I told you it's not camp." And it was, I believed in him. I already believed in them. I knew they would nail it, but I was like, thank God this is it. Okay. But you have to fight for that. It's not easy to fight for that as a director. And they both fought for that. And I'm glad they did.
Great. You know, the ensemble here is very, very strong. I mean, some really good acting here, really, lots of great people in the cast. Can you sort of talk about the ensemble, but also, I mean, and the goddess that is Robin Lively?
Oh man. Well, we were really lucky to have at the start of this a really great intention that we were going to bring in actors who were very grounded and really great at what they did. And Steve wanted to make sure we were championing a cast that could do that. He acquainted us with our casting director, Matthew Glasner, who was a very incredibly important part of developing this cast with Steve and Colby and I. And that was something that was really interesting in the process is kind of trying to conceptualize what would this cast look like. But I feel like there were a lot of really great conversations between us and Steve and Matthew as to how could this be maximized as cast, what type of cast would do this. I know that you and Steve even were the first to see Robin's tape together. Is that correct?
Yeah, and she's just wonderful. She's a grounded actress. She knows what she's doing, and the biggest thing is that she understood who this character was from the get-go. Like so much of getting good performances is doing good casting, and so we felt in good hands knowing that, like, okay, she gets this, so we need to just give her space to play and to do it and live in it and be real. And that's what she did. I think she's just fabulous.
Yeah.
Great. Congratulations. So now there is a pretty healthy SCAD component to this film. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I could probably take that one because I do also teach at SCAD,
SCAD
and
Savannah, correct?
in Savannah. Yes, thank you. So yeah, I teach in SCAD Savannah. But I've been up to SCAD Atlanta quite a few times, and I love our colleagues there. And we had colleagues from Atlanta on this as well, including so SCAD was a huge help. Our gaffer Amanda Kulkowski is a SCAD lighting professor. Um, Guys, what, 15 between post and production, probably SCAD students, current students and alumni working on it.
Yeah.
For several of them, it was their first job in the industry. We couldn't be more proud. They stepped up. They came up. They came up to Kentucky. We all shot in a small town in Kentucky together, and the school really just supported us, which was a blessing all the way up through remixing our sound before a festival. So yeah, they've been a big part of it, and there's a lot of Georgia in this movie.
Oh, good. Good,
Even
good,
though
good.
we shot in Kentucky, though Kentucky was amazing.
Yeah,
There's a lot of Georgia and Georgians in it.
that's great. Sam and Colby, can you sort of talk about, you know, working on this film together and also being a couple and that dynamic?
Yeah, for sure. Colby and I are married. We've been married for 2 years, but together for 12 years. And not too long after we started dating, we actually started working creatively together. I was in film school, and around the time I graduated is when we met, and Colby had just finished at Western Kentucky, where he was in speech and debate. So our interests intersected in really interesting ways, and we developed a lot of web series together. We did a feature called Pig Hag together. That was our first feature, which was no budget, went to South by Southwest, and Ganymede was our next film that has been a whole beast of its own, no pun intended. And working together has been a really great thing for us. And I know that we'll often talk to people who will be like, "Oh gosh, I don't know how you guys do it. I could never work creatively with my partner." But honestly, for us, it works well, and it's one of those things that we're really glad we are able to do, especially because our interests and our wheelhouse and our strengths are kind of different respectively. Colby's really an incredible writer. He has a keen eye for the actors and for the way that they perform. I'm often around style and cinematography and editing, so our skills meet, especially in production, and we're always collaborating with one another throughout the process of it. But we have a really good blend, I would say, with that.
Yeah, and honestly, I know people do it all the time, but sometimes I'm like to Sam, like I don't know how other directors do this alone. It feels like just too much not to be able to look at someone and be like, well, that was crazy, or like, wow, that was amazing. We got that scene. It's like to be able to share in your triumphs and share in your defeats as well, as like it's just always nice to have someone with you that is in it as deep as you are.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like being it's like being on a roller coaster ride in the front row with someone next to you rather than riding it alone. And that's what I think I love about it personally, you know. And Steve has also been such an incredible part for every step of this as well. And it's been really helpful that as we went into this next film and there was so many more moving parts than we would have ever known how to handle, Steve has been our guiding mentor for every step of it. And
yeah, if Sam and I are in like a boat together, it's Steve like controlling the rudder and the
to make
engine,
sure that we
making
don't
sure we're
think.
going the right way.
Yeah.
But these guys were amazing to do it together, and even though we're Southern Gothic, they had very few arguments, and if they were, the arguments were not "Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte." The arguments they were channeling the Midwestern part of them, and not the Southern Gothic part. Because
Okay, Steve, which one of us is Olivia de Havilland and which one is Betty Davis?
we'll figure that out later.
We'll figure out the call.
That's great. All right. The film is Ganymede. It plays on Out on Film on Saturday, September the 28th at 7 p.m. at the Midtown Art Cinema. And Colby and Sam will actually be at the screening, so you can meet them there. Hopefully, Steve, I'm not sure if you can make it, but hopefully you can come as well. But it should be a great screening and Q&A. So thank you very much. Congratulations on the film. I'm glad we're showing it here at Out on Film. And we look forward to meeting you on the 28th.
Thank you.
Thank you,
We're
Sam.
very honored to be part of it. And thank you for your entire team for doing the work that you're doing to put it together.
Thank you all so much.
Cheers, y'all. Thank you.
Bye.